Hello and welcome to London College of Fashion's 2025 School of Media and Communication postgraduate podcasts. I'm Bex Cassie, Creative Director for the School of Media and Communication, and I'm excited to introduce this series of discussions, which highlights the work from students on the MA Fashion Curation and Cultural Programming course. In this series, we'll be discussing key themes that are shaping the future of fashion, from exploring exhibition dialogues as catalysts for change, to the intersection of physical and digital spaces in fashion exhibitions, and the process of navigating research to uncover and share meaningful fashion narratives. These conversations provide a deeper look into the ideas and practices that are redefining how we curate, present, and understand fashion in today's world. Whether you're in the fashion industry or simply interested in where it's heading, we hope you'll find these discussions insightful. Thanks for tuning in. We're glad you're here.
I'm Dr. Cyana Madsen, course leader for MA Fashion Curation and Cultural Programming at London College of Fashion. I'm joined today by two of my graduates from the class of 2024-2025. I think it's probably best if they introduce themselves and give us a very brief, kind of one-sentence elevator pitch about your master's project research.
So, hello, my name is Divya Nayak, and my project explores the ephemerality of biomaterials, the exhibition of them in an exhibitorial setting, and also the digital archiving of things that are prone to decay.
Yeah, wonderful, thank you.
Hi, my name's Georgie Hitchins, and my project explores the materiality of lace through a private lace collection that was given to me by a close family friend. And I kind of explore the themes of memory, sentiment, emotion, and nostalgia through like physical exhibition display outputs.
Wonderful, thank you. I want to start with Divya. So your research expanded beyond kind of theoretical curation into developing a really interactive digital exhibition. And you're looking at biomaterials. So I was wondering if you could first explain to us what biomaterials are within thinking about fashion.
Yeah.
And then why digital to represent material or biomaterials?
So, biomaterials have different connotations. Usually, it's things that have living matter in it. But because of the whole influx of biodesign, bio-based design, there's a lot of like classification that comes within it. So, within the scope of my project, I decided to go with biomaterials as being defined as something that had, or a sample or a garment that had living matter in it, or it was aided by living matter. So example is if there's algae that's evidently present in the dress, then that's like living matter in itself. Or if it's like Pinatex or something like that, that's like pineapple fiber. It's something that's aided by organic matter.
Right.
So that was the scope of my project of what biomaterials were.
Great.
And because these are things that are prone to decay, I wanted to show like the beauty in which things could decay as well. It was more to do with how, you're not putting anything to stabilize it and make sure that it lasts long. Rather, you see the process of its journey, of like its life cycle, and then archive it for later. So you can still see it, but it's not there in the present anymore. And the reason why I chose digital was because like I said, biomaterials are so ephemeral. They're really hard to like sustain for a long time. And digital is something that can capture and keep it as a footprint forever on like, platforms and databases. So you can still access this information further in the future. And the nature of my project was a bit collaborative, where I wanted to show like emerging designers using biomaterials. It's really hard to get a hold of like the samples they had created maybe a few months ago, or they're still in the experimentation process.
Yeah.
So having maybe the small photographs or like, these sample projects that they had, and then digitizing it was much more easy for me to like showcase biomaterials to other people rather than actually having it physically there present because of like the hindrances and challenges that biomaterials pose.
For sure. That's super fascinating. I'm really interested in the idea of wearing something that's got some element of life to it still.
So cool.
And Georgie, you focused on exhibition making as well, but from the kind of physical material space.
Yeah.
And I wanted you to just speak a little bit about how materiality is important to your practice and why it was important to make this exhibition in a physical space.
I think I was first interested in the idea of materiality as soon as I saw the collection, because the lady that gave it to me, she was obsessed with lace. And I went to her house, this was like probably a year ago now, and she gave it to me. She was like, oh my gosh, look at this lace, it's so beautiful. And we were kind of looking through it, and I just thought this would be amazing to like study as part of my master's project and kind of explore how like a material like lace, which is obviously it's got like a level of transparency, you know, so many different laces depending where they're from and who's made them. They've got like different textures and stuff. So I really wanted to explore within my final project how I could like display it within a physical setting in like various ways to like, I don't know, just get my viewers to see it in a different light through like light and shadow, like transparency, and kind of just exploring how like memory and sentiment and like these themes that I was exploring can be like conveyed through the materiality of it. But yeah, I was very much looking at from like physical exhibition display, but kind of like I was also very interested in how you digitize these materials that are so textured. So I think that's something that I'm still really interested in, and I still have the collection with me, so I would love to kind of maybe explore more and
maybe some
cross
collaboration there.
You've got the digital knowledge, so it'd be great to kind of like put my lace more into the digital realm as well.
And I also think it would work in a way because when I was working with the biomaterials, there was this one small material called serpentine lace, which was basically a whole lace-looking like sample piece that was made out of algae, and like it was 3D printed, and the algae was poured into it, and then the serpentine lace was created. It was by the designer Scarlett Yang, and I feel like because I think you might have come across this where it's really hard to like photograph a digitized lace because of the holes that come in it. And I think like maybe having it 3D is quite hard and we need to still work on it. But for 2D, because I'd already done something similar, it would be really easy to digitize your lace.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
definitely.
So you've spoken about the kind of difficulty about capturing, I mean, using lace as an example, in the digital realm. It's the kind of negative space, isn't it? That's difficult to capture. So I wanted to think about how you get to these points of discovery. So thinking about both of you undertook a really extensive period of experimentation in developing your projects. So Divya, I wanted to ask you first, was there a kind of key technology or a key, digital platform that you discovered during your process that was really key to your research?
So I initially started off thinking I wanted to make a scale model, like a physical model, and then create like a small digital catalog of the digital elements of the exhibition. And I think it's mostly because I was trying to show a hybrid view of an exhibition where you can still keep traditional elements like tactile feel and like venue, but then immerse the visitors into like a digital realm to show the possibility of the future. Realize after a bit of mind mapping and stuff that it's a bit too much. I was reaching out for too much. Just thought to like ground myself and like start from basics, and I thought to like completely digitize it. I've always worked with a lot of digital elements. I've really liked it. I've done that in my undergrad as well. So I thought of experimenting it a bit more. I started off with just sketching on Procreate. And then there was an app called Sketch 3D, I think. There were too many limitations though. It was paid. There wasn't much I could do with it. And then I tried to move into another space, which was also another app, which again was very limited to me until I was at the DLL one day, and James basically was like, why don't you try Unreal Engine?
Yeah.
And I was like, but it's too much for me because I have no idea. I have no experience in coding. I have no experience in anything. But I did have experience in Blender, and then Adobe Suite. So I did a lot of Adobe Substance Stadio, experimented. So I think I lost a bit of time in my whole experimentation, but I learned a lot.
Yeah.
So I used to come to uni, I used to sit the whole day and just randomly make objects. And I was able to create a vitrine. I was able to create the walls, everything that ended up going into the exhibition on the Substance Stadio, and then blended and used a morphing like technique and like had to like collaborate the whole thing on Blender.
Yeah.
And then finally took everything onto Unreal Engine to create the actual environment and the immersive experience. So it's been a long coming. There's been too many digital platforms involved to the point where I'm confused of what I use, to be honest. But I'm glad because I did put in the effort to actually learn something on my own. That's a biggest achievement for me, I feel. And obviously I had James help me a lot, which was wonderful as well.
And you mentioned the DLL, which is the Digital Learning Lab.
Yes.
So it's great having those kind of resources that you can go in and, as you said, experiment with all day, for multiple days, I have no doubt. And Georgie, thinking about your process of experimentation, and I like the kind of dichotomy between the Digital Learning Lab, and I know at one point you were in your bedroom closet, I believe, in your experimentation. So can you tell us about maybe that process of being at home and experimenting?
I kind of had, like, when I first set out with my experimentation, I had all these ideas of to kind of hang my lace in various places. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll go to uni and I'll make this, I don't know, this big box and do it there. And then suddenly I was like, oh my gosh, I've got my wardrobe, which is perfect. Because I was looking for like a dark shadowed place, somewhere that I could shine my lamp into and then kind of hang the lace off. I was going to use monofilament originally, but then I saw my coat hanger and I was like, oh my gosh, brilliant. I'll just hang it off that. So yeah, I kind of started my initial experimentation was in my room, in the wardrobe, just taking pictures and changing the angles of the lamp to create interesting shadows. But yeah, it was really, really rewarding. I think it was really important at the start because then I could realise what worked and what didn't. And then I kind of developed my experimentation and started making more kind of like professional and like clean cut hanging displays and stuff. Yeah, it was really fun right at the start to explore that.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it's also, it highlights really beautifully that, you know, you can have kind of state-of-the-art technology at your disposal, or you can have a hanger in your wardrobe that you can use and practice sits comfortably in kind of the widest spectrum of materials and technologies. So we've talked a little bit about the Digital Learning Lab, and Divya's use of that. Georgie, what kind of facilities were you using when you did come to the school to start your practice?
So when I came so I'd made most of my like mini installations at home, and then when it came to doing the final vitrine display, I purchased a lot of my display materials, but I realised early on that I wanted to print a lot of my lace images onto acetate. I'd never done that before, so that's when I came to the Digital Learning Lab and I spoke to someone. I was like, I've got all my lace within the vitrine, but I also wanted to explore this idea of transparency and kind of like reflections and stuff. So I had edited close-up pictures of my lace, cropped out the background so that the images were clear, and then I put them onto a series of PDFs. The plan was to print them onto acetate. So I basically went and asked, I was like, how do I do this? So one of the people here, they helped me out and they got out these sheets of big acetate and we kind of like got the sizing right, and then she helped me print it out. But yeah, it was really fun because I'd never done that before.
Yeah.
And yeah, I didn't really know you could even print onto surfaces like acetate. She showed me a few other like reflective like prints that were really cool that I would have liked to explore as well, and like printing onto like mirrored materials, which is something I saw but I didn't have the chance to explore, but was really cool. So yeah, I enjoyed kind of exploring that as well.
So maybe something to look at in the future.
Yeah.
Still got the collection.
Yeah,
I don't know. So we might have some new digital interventions and some materia interventions.
Yeah.
I think both of your work speaks to sustainability. And again, not that it's necessarily a dichotomy, but because you're curating biomaterials, so you're curating the work of designers who are looking at sustainability within fashion, which we of course know the fashion industry is an incredible source of waste and environmental harm. And then with Georgie's work, you're thinking about kind of how to reactivate existing materials and also, again, doing it in ways that are very accessible. So I wonder if you could each speak about how ideas around sustainability or the environment or how to engage that in curatorial practice might have come up in your research.
So for me personally, going into this project, sustainability was a key factor. I did fashion design for my undergrad, and we used to have like a lot of emphasis on like being sustainable. And I did end up working with a lot of sustainability competitions and projects back in Dubai, and they were really insightful. There was one where we had to make like an Adidas garment out of Adidas scraps or like rejects, and that was really insightful. So I wanted to bring a part of my learning into like my master's, which I'm going like more in depth in. And when I thought of doing biomaterials and exploring something that's not usually as seen in the exhibition setting, I was like, this is great because it also, yes, it opens a wider audience to understand what biomaterials is, but it also raises awareness of sustainability. So I think, that was my main focus.
Yeah. And what about for you, Georgie? Did kind of thinking about maybe sustainability or maybe more accessibility in terms of engaging with fashion, did that come into your work at all?
Yeah, I think very much thinking about the idea of looking at kind of objects and materials that were once like pre-loved and like the idea of like reusing them in a new, like an interesting way within the like exhibition setting was very important to me, because there were these kind of like, specifically to the collection I was working from, they're obviously like materials that the lady who gave them to me, she loved them and she kind of appreciated them and treasured them, kept them in a box. And then I feel like by me kind of like exploring them and kind of like bringing them back to the life, it's kind of like exploring that idea of reuse and kind of recycling these old materials that were kind of hidden away and kind of bringing them into the light again.
And I have no doubt getting, you were using vitrines in the building and getting fashion design students, and potentially beyond as well too, to think about reuse within their own work. That's really interesting. So as we look to the future of the field, I wanted to it's maybe more of a provocation for two of you. But do you feel that, there's a real push towards digital interventions in exhibition making, in fashion exhibition making, and certainly in cultural programming events as well? Do you think there's going to be a continued growth of digital interventions? And kind of the provocation to that is, do you think there's still an important place for material physical interventions? So perhaps you might both want to take that question on.
Do you want to go first?
I think, the idea of like digital experiences and exhibitions, I think they're so unique and they're so engaging, I think, to audiences today. Like you see more and more of them. And I think it is something that, will continue to be hugely like explored within the future, which I think is great, because I think for like fashion as a platform, there's so much you can do within the digital space, like Divya's explored within her project. But I also think it's important to still explore the physical, like kind of material items that you see in person. So I think these exhibitions that kind of have this sort of like hybrid experience that you were talking about, I think they're really, really important as well, because you're kind of exploring that digital realm, but also you're experiencing these objects in person in real life and you can see them, which I think is really also important.
Well, bouncing off of Georgie, I do think it's really important as well, because there's like, we're in a digital age, so there's nothing really new about like, oh, there's a digital exhibition or an installation. But the fact that if you're gonna tell your visitors it's a hybrid exhibition, which I try to like make the key focus. Obviously, it's such a large scale. I had no resources, funds, or expertise to actually go and do it. But to show that it's something that I wanted to do, I took the effort to actually create the temperate house from Kew Gardens for my exhibition. And that's to show that that is the physical venue,
Right.
that the whole thing would go inside. And then the hologram boxes inside the exhibition would be the immersive experience of like, yes, you get to see the sample, but it's in its experimentation process. So this is what the future would look like.
Yeah.
And it gives the visitor the whole tactile engagement that they would like. And for people who would think that, oh, like we enjoyed like, you know, traditional physical exhibitions. We don't want it to go away just because the digital is on rise. It's like catering to every kind of audience. And also it tackles accessibility issues.
Yeah.
Because yes, it's amazing to have like a physical exhibit or installation, but there are people who have problems with maybe reading, hearing, you know, having like audio cues, having things like that, which obviously you need the digital for, helps a lot in that as well. So I think having a rise of digital is good. That's what's happening. But I feel like it is really important to also focus on like the hybrid mode of everything, so that you don't really completely burn off the bridges to like your traditional ways just because you want to attain something in the future.
Yeah, I think it's really, it's about using digital in a really clever way, which, you know, you've engaged with, to still represent the really material, tangible, emotional parts of fashion that obviously Georgie deals with a lot in her work. So I think we can agree then it's a hybrid future.
Definitely.
That's great. I wanted to ask each of you, maybe Divya, you can go first. Was there a specific, you've talked, you know, again about digital learning lab and discoveries that you made through your research, but I wonder if there was a specific moment or workshop or seminar that you experienced on the course that was a kind of pivotal moment in developing your research. So maybe less the kind of actual experimentation, but the moment that kind of spurred you on to the topic.
I think when we had the mounting workshop, it was really nice. It was something that we got to do hands-on, and it was by a conservator, so it felt very legit. And it did feel like a whole apprenticeship kind of like, you know, situation where we were all like, the dressmakers more like her birdies of like Cinderella or something like that. But it was really insightful. That made me feel like, yeah, I do like this whole hands-on experience. But then we had like a few tutorials with Daniel, and we had I think one lecture with Maria where they really spoke about like the digital realm, which was quite my expertise, I feel like. So with Daniel talking about experimental curation, that really struck a nerve in me, because I was like, I did take this course to do something new, to deviate from like something I've always done. And so why not like experiment? That's the whole reason, like, you know, I decided to do a master's to like see how much I can push myself. And the fact that he was like, yeah, it's like there's like unlimited possibilities with the digital, like, you know, there's so many, like, I knew Unreal Engine existed. I didn't know you could use it like for anything apart like from a game.
Yeah.
And that was very eye-opening to me. And Maria's lecture about like, you know, how brands are now focusing on archiving everything digitally and using it as heritage. That also was really like reminiscent in the fact that, oh, like if I can combine these two together, I can like achieve what I've been thinking of and not really been able to put it down into words.
Yeah.
I think that was really like, it was a mix and match of like different like tutorials and things like that, but I think it all led to like one main goal.
Yeah.
And that was really helpful. So yeah.
Great. And Georgie, how about you? Was there a kind of like light bulb moment that you had through one of your experiences on the course?
Yes, so we had a workshop with, it was Claire Wilcox and Amy Delahaye, and they brought in this old shoe. It was like, I don't know if you remember, and we were talking about like just examining the shoe close up, and it really got me to think about kind of like the themes of like memory marks within clothing, and kind of like how the material like kind of attributes that certain objects have, they kind of tell a story of the object. And that was really interesting to me, and really kind of like got me to be really kind of excited about my project and kind of the materials that I was looking at. But yeah, it was just nice to, in the workshop, all of us to kind of pass around the shoe and like look at it close up, identify the different like markings that it had, and I kind of, it was just really interesting and really inspired me as well.
Great. So you made it through the other side. You're graduates now. What piece of advice do you have for future students on MA Fashion Curation and Cultural Programming?
It was a tough one. So many. I would say just experiment loads. I think like it doesn't matter what you're doing, if you're exploring more like digital kind of like or physical, it doesn't matter what like part of curation and stuff that you're looking at. I think if you can like experiment as much as you can, I feel like that's the best way to learn new things, because I think it's quite easy on this course. Obviously like in the workshops and stuff, you're learning lots of things, but it's also so great to kind of go out and try and find new ways to experiment as well.
Yeah.
So I think like obviously you did so much experimenting. I've done a lot of experimenting this year.
Yeah.
And I found that was like the most important part for me, because it like helped me realize what I wanted to do, and also for the future, because I feel like now I know what I'm interested in, and I kind of want to like expand on what I've done this year. So yeah, definitely just experiment loads.
Great.
I would like say the same as well, because you sometimes end up starting with something and it probably is a fail, but through that you find out something that you didn't even realize you wanted to know.
Yeah.
And you start building upon that, and sometimes you find out you're great at that, and like that only comes up when you like take up every opportunity you can. Like I would say whenever there's something, like keep your like ringer for like Eventbrite on like UAM and CF like on, because like I've got like so many notifications for like symposium talks, and like sometimes you might think like it's not for you, but you end up like picking up on like maybe even a sentence that can like help you throughout the thing. And also like don't be afraid to like experiment, because like for me personally, when I first came into the course, I found out like most of my classmates had like a bachelor's in like history of art, or like, you know, things that are actually tied to the course in a way that we ended up doing for masters. And I was just someone who did fashion design and came in. I had no idea. Like I was more, I still think I am more of like a practitioner than an academic, in terms of like we had a lot of academic papers to write. I learned a lot from that because I'd never done that before. Every piece of my production was always practical. And so I always felt like the dumb one. I'm pretty sure it's
no way.
So I always felt like, oh, should I do this? Because what's the point if I'm going to feel the same way? Or like, should I ask this question? What if it's dumb? And like everyone says, like obviously there's no dumb question, especially in a master's course where everyone's come to like find their speciality, find like what they're liking and what they want to do. I feel like you should do everything you can to like seize that moment. It's like you have only like 12 months now. It's like very concise, and you need to try to make like use of every resource the uni gives as well. Like I am a little bit upset and disappointed in myself that I went to the DLL at the very last minute because I had so much more time. Yes, I started experimenting earlier, but I wish I could have gone earlier to that I could have done so much more.
Yeah.
Because that's the only regret I have from like my master's project, is that I didn't give myself or allow myself enough time to actually experiment and like, you know, enjoy the software as much as I wanted to. And so at the end, it was more like a task to finish rather than trying to enjoy, because I did enjoy the software quite a bit, but it did end up being a pain when I just had to
nice
sit
to
and
have
shiver.
that kind of luxury but isn't it? And I mean, I think you both really touched on something that's really important, which is that we all bring our own experiences and interests to the course, and there's a reason why you're here. And you bring a really unique viewpoint to it. And together as a cohort, you know, you've collaborated on things and you've shared those viewpoints, and I think it's really enriching for everyone. So you highlight a really important part of the, you know, we say the research journey, which is bringing your experiences in, having new ones, and kind of paring away the things that don't work for you, and honing down those skills and knowledges that you need in your practice. So let's end it with, what's next? Do you have any projects that you're working on? Any ideas you're hoping to develop for the future?
In terms of what's next, right now, I think the next thing that's coming up is obviously the showcase. And I'm especially excited about that because I went on this course really wanting to have created kind of like a physical display. Yeah. I'm excited to do it again in the showcase as well, because we just had a chat with Bex and I think she said we now get a vitrine each, which is exciting. So I'm just excited to get to display some of my lace again. And yeah, in the future, I would just love to continue down that road.
Great. Well, I can't wait to see the next iteration of the lace collection. And Divya, how about you?
I would say quite similar. My first, obviously, milestone would be to have a successful like graduate showcase. And again, like talking to Bex and talking to Luke, I think for me, because mine is a digital representation, that still talks about how it can be presented, because it's quite hard if it's inside a vitrine. People need to access it or immerse in it, and you can't really do anything when things are behind that glass wall. So there still talks about how we're gonna present it. Maybe it'll be on the opposite side where they'll put up a screen and like people can come and when they present like games and trade shows, maybe something like that.
Sure, yeah.
Hopefully it's like that. And obviously after that, like I do want to get my foot in the door for like the exhibition culture sector here in the UK.
Yeah.
Like, you know, find a job that I really want to do and enjoy, even if it's like the base level.
Yeah.
Because I always believe in this thing is like, if you do want to really work in like a certain sector or like a certain company, starting from the bottom is the best, because you get to like experience so many things over the course of time and then like reach where you want to ultimately.
Yeah, it's nice to get a holistic view of exhibition making, and it's great that, you know, for Graduate Showcase, you have the support of Bex Cassie, who's our creative director at the School of Media and Communications, and Luke Turk, who's our exhibitions technician. So you've got that kind of view in the round of how an exhibition will come together for Graduate Showcase. So lots to look forward to, Ben, and I'm really thrilled to see it come to fruition.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.